So we're going live on multiple platforms right now. This is the first time, so it's a bit of a test. We'll see what happens. But right now we're live on Instagram Live, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So we'll see what happens. This is different. This is new. If you guys are hopping in on Instagram, what's up, my guys? If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, it's all brand new. You're probably seeing my face for the first time. My name's Brad. I run and own and operate the SF Niners across all platforms. So again, we're doing something a little different today. But I do want to talk about pro days. That's what we're here for. Today was a big day, at least for Justin Fields truthers. If you're big into the draft, if you're big into the 49ers, obviously the two go hand in hand with what has happened recently. The 49ers have moved up to number 3, and everything, all signs and indications point towards the 49ers drafting a quarterback. Now the debate is, who is that quarterback? Is it Justin Fields? Is it Zach Wilson? Is it Trey Lance? Is it Mayo Mack? We don't know yet, and that's what we're here to talk about. Obviously, we had 2 pro days today, and this is a little bit different of a situation compared to when Mack had his previous pro day and or Trey Lance had his previous pro day for multiple reasons. The 49ers didn't own the number 3 overall pick up until this point. They were sitting at 12. It looked like none of these quarterbacks were going to make it to 12. So there really wasn't a ton of stock that was put into either Trey Lance's pro day. I know I didn't even post about it. I'm a big Trey Lance guy. And with Mayo Mack either, there wasn't much discussion just because it felt like at that point in time, all those quarterbacks were going to go top 10. And with the 49ers sitting at 12, it just didn't really feel like that was going to happen. But sure enough, as we sit today, we are staring the number 3 pick right in the face. And that is quarterback territory. The 49ers traded 3 first-round picks and a compensatory third. To do so, you do not leverage the future of your franchise to move up and grab a tackle, a cornerback, an edge. It doesn't even matter those foundational positions that typically require high draft picks. You're going quarterback. And especially with this class, with 4 guys, potentially 5 guys, I would say, that are going to go top 10, if not the first time we ever see 5 quarterbacks go off the board 5 in a row. So it's going to be really interesting. But essentially what we're looking at today is we're looking at the pro days between Mac Jones and Justin Fields. And we'll start with Mac Jones because he went first, so we'll talk about him first. And obviously, if you're a 49ers fan, and as you kind of see the narrative play out, you know, you can see which way the fan base is swinging at this current point in time. But I think today really helped push that narrative in that direction. Because if we looked at Mac Jones's pro day, one of the first couple plays where he let it rip, he actually hit the roof of the building. Now, looking at the building, it looked like it was a low ceiling and what have you, and he wanted to put some air under it. And the whole point of why he was doing this pro day was to really show, try to show some evaluators that he had some zip on the ball, had the ability to push the ball downfield. So I think that's really what he wanted evaluators up until this point. So he came out, and that he came out a little shaky. He had some missed throws. He had some balls thrown deep that sailed over some of the players' heads. But what was really kind of fun to watch, I guess, about that whole situation was watching, some of the throws sail over the wide receivers' heads, and then they panned to Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch, or they even panned to Bill Belichick at one point just shaking his head at an overthrow. So you could see, I think Mac Jones, if you had to ask him, he would have wanted to perform a little bit better. I think he would have definitely liked to perform a little bit better, considering the amount of pressure, considering the high profile nature of who was in attendance. Now, with all the talk with him being at number 3 potentially for the Niners, I think he would have wanted to do a little bit better. But obviously, being a 49ers fan, we're living in the 49ers world. That one of the overthrows was instantly connected to the Super Bowl overthrow with Jimmy Garoppolo, and of course, is bringing up and stirring up some of that old PTSD that comes along with that. So when you're looking at Mac Jones's pro day from a whole, I think he did exactly what we should expect from Mac Jones at this point. There was nothing that really blew anyone away. You can tell, again, he has the ability to be accurate over the middle of the field. He can make all the throws. He puts it on tape. He does it. But you just don't see that zip on the ball. You don't see the power. You don't see that ball just hopping off of his hands like you really want to see from these elite prospects, from these elite quarterbacks. You just want to see guys who just can basically flick their wrist and the ball's going 40 yards down the field on a dime. With Mac Jones, he leaves some of that on the table, from my opinion, at least just from watching his pro day. There wasn't you don't see that zip that you would like to see. And so watching his pro day, it kind of felt about right. It felt mediocre, I would say at best. We've given him the nickname over here, Mayo Mac, just because, he's not flashy. He's not a guy that's going to wow you with his traits or his intangibles. His intangibles are being a good processor, being able to read the field, throw with anticipation, things like that. But from a pure tools standpoint, you saw some of the limited ability when it comes to his legs, and he doesn't give you that look of someone, at least in the modern day build of your Patrick Mahomes, your Josh Allens, you name any one of these athletic quarterbacks who are thriving in the NFL these days. He just doesn't look like that. He just looks like, more of that Tom Brady-esque type guy. We know that wins games. We know being efficient and taking care of the football and doing those kinds of things wins football games in the NFL. We understand teams play complementary football. He's a guy who would do that well for a team. He will be a top 10 pick. He is worthy of a top 10 pick. But he is just going up against some of the most physically gifted quarterbacks that we've seen enter the draft, and they happen to be coming in all at once. And you start with Lawrence, who's the prototype, who's been anointed, the number 1 overall pick since he was like a junior in high school. He's a prototype. He's not going anywhere. I think he's stuck right there at number 1. And then now the conversation gets interesting with Justin Fields' pro day. So we transition over to Columbus, Ohio, where we finally got to see Justin Fields throw for the first time since the season has ended. And he came out a little rocky. He had one throw where his throwing motion looked a little messed up, which caused a ball to flutter out. Looked like it lost a lot of velocity. And I was preparing for a long pro day of like, oh no, my guy Justin Fields is gonna not look so hot. But he shook it off almost instantly. And then almost every throw after that was on point. You can nitpick some accuracy, like maybe hit this shoulder instead of that the upfield shoulder, like you would want to see. But it's very minor. Everything else that came from Justin's Fields pro day was magnificent. I've never been so hyped watching a pro day. Keep in mind, I've never been sitting as a fan of the 49ers at pick 3 looking to draft the quarterback of the future. So yeah, that those two things have never happened. But I will say, watching Justin Fields sling that rock 40, 50, 60-yard downfield off, off target, off angle, rolling out of the pocket, rolling to the left, rolling to the right. It's just really, especially watching him back to back with Mac Jones. You just watch the talent, the arm talent, specifically the arm talent, the way, like we talked about with Mac Jones, that ball just jumps. The ball just jumps out of Justin Fields' hand. It's really impressive to watch. He has that zip. He has the velocity that comes behind it, which then translates into fitting balls into really small windows in the NFL when you're facing against coverage. He did a lot of things that, again, just made me happy as a Justin Fields truther. So with that pro day and what he did and what he executed, I think one of my favorite things about watching Justin Fields pro day specifically is how much action they had in the pocket, whether it was a guy with a bag or a guy just rushing at him, or the way that they basically, because everything is practiced and repped and designed going into this pro day, but they designed a really good plan, in my opinion, to be able to showcase, him executing his standard drop back footwork, but then how he manages outside pressure, inside pressure, what his adjustments are, and then the throws that he makes off of those adjustments. One of the things that we talk about with Zach Wilson is his ability to throw off angle, to throw off, like Zach Wilson can literally be falling down and still somehow throw a dime 30 yards downfield. He just has the ability to throw off any angle, any spot, and it's really special to watch Zach Wilson throw the football. It's just his arm is a thing of beauty. So then being able to watch Justin Fields, you kind of got some of that. It's not as natural as Wilson. I think Wilson has arguably the best arm in this class, but it is still up there. It is ranked right up there, in my opinion. You saw what you needed to see. You saw those same wild plays that you saw from Zach Wilson's pro day. And again, it's pro day. There's no pads. There's no defenders. You're running on air. It's scripted. It's with guys in controlled environments. But still, you can look past, you can understand the context of what you're watching to be able to understand that Justin Fields has an arm. Justin Fields has a cannon. He does have a bigger windup. Oh my goodness. He does have a bigger windup. But that's, I think, something that can be coached and corrected and drilled as something to, again, improve his game. I still don't see Justin as the perfect prospect. I still see plenty of opportunity for him to grow and continue to get better. So again, it's just super, super exciting. So I think as the 49ers, fans of the 49ers, people who follow the draft and are trying to follow the ebbs and flows of the hype and what have you, it really feels like right now, obviously this is gut reaction. We just had both their pro days. We've only been less than a week since knowing that the 49ers own the number 3 overall pick. So there's just a lot going on, but I think how it feels, at least, or how it's stacking up, is that right now for the 49ers at number 3, it's Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. I think that's honestly how it's stacking up. I'm a big fan of Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance is arguably has the best tools out of all the prospects. You just have to look at his experience and some of those things, obviously playing at a lower level and what have you. But you look at all the quarterbacks together, and it just really feels like just really feels like it's between Justin Fields and Zach Wilson at this point. And so now, me, speaking only from my perspective, being a Justin Fields truther, we go back to last year. Even when Justin Fields and Zach Wilson were all in the Heisman hype together, both playing exceptionally well. I always have led I've always leaned towards Justin Fields. And I've kind of stayed put ever since. So I haven't moved off. And so obviously going through the offseason, a lot of I don't want to call it slander just because it's people's evaluations of him. So I don't want to call it slander, but it's just hyper evaluation of Justin Fields' quote unquote issues. I felt like got overblown. So watching that entire process go through, watch guys put Kellen Mond over guys like Justin Fields. It feels really good now to come out and watch Justin just obliterate his pro day. And really see the entire narrative swing from Ohio State busts, no good quarterbacks come out of Ohio State. That whole kind of narrative that follows, I feel like has died down, like officially. I think the pro day just kind of killed any of those questions because you can see the potential at the very least, very least, you see potential that Justin Fields has. He runs a 4. We didn't even talk about what he ran. He ran a 4.4, ran a 4.4 340, which again is elite. You look at guys like 49er fans know Russell Wilson extremely well. We know Russell Wilson for his ability to extend plays, his ability to keep his eyes downfield, his ability to escape the pocket and make plays when the team needs it. We know as 49er fans, we know that so well. So when you see a guy like Justin Fields, who is faster than Russ, who has a similar type of intangible as Russ, who is a prototypical pocket passer, and I'm talking about a guy who will live and die in the pocket and only use his 4.4 speed if he truly has to. He really is a guy who's a prototypical pocket passer who doesn't have to take one rush a game and can dismantle you with his arm alone. So when I see Justin doing what he did today at his pro day, I'm excited. I can't hide it. For me personally, I am a big Fields guy. So today was a win for the Fields Hive. The Hive is buzzing today. And it kind of feels like we separated some of the Mac Jones talk a little bit, because for whatever reason, when the pick was made and the 49ers made that move, it felt like if you had a blue check and you talked about the 49ers of the draft, you were connecting them to Mac Jones. It was just a weird situation that I didn't understand why that was a parallel that was being made. But it is what it is, because honestly, I'll stick with my gut. I'll stick with my evaluation. It always felt like to me it was Wilson and or Fields and potentially Lance. Mac Jones always felt like the furthest thing away from what the 49ers wanted to do, because everyone keeps pointing to what Kyle Shanahan does right now and how his offense looks right now and how, Mac would fit that perfectly. But I think what people need to recall and remember is that the 49ers are moving away from a quarterback that resembles what Mac Jones is. They are moving on likely from Jimmy Garoppolo. So to me, that doesn't mean that we need to get a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo to fit into this scheme. If there's anything that I've learned about Kyle Shanahan, the way he's operated back to Washington, back to Cleveland, back to Atlanta, back to Houston, he fits his scheme to his players, whether he wants to or not. We understand that Kyle Shanahan did not draft or want Robert Griffin III, but we saw him completely change his scheme, play calling, stylistically, every single way possible to fit a player. So if you're telling me that your criteria for putting Mac Jones is because he's the best fit, any quarterback fits Kyle Shanahan. Any quarterback fits Kyle Shanahan because Kyle Shanahan fits his scheme to the strength of his quarterback. So in my opinion, that is just, I don't want to say lazy. It just feels like, oh, he looks like Jimmy, so that must be the guy. And it's like, I don't see it that way because I'm like, well, they're moving off Jimmy. So why would they take a guy who is very similar to Jimmy from a skill set standpoint and transition to that? This is an opportunity now for this team to really change a lot of narratives. And if you go back to the press conference, when Kyle Shanahan was asked about Kirk Cousins, which he's asked, I feel like multiple times a year, based on, of course, the well-documented story of him not drafting Mahomes or Watson because of his affinity for Kirk Cousins. I loved hearing what Kyle Shanahan had to say about Kirk Cousins, and not necessarily what he said, but how he said it, because he looked fired up. He looked a little pissed off that he had to answer that question yet again. So in my opinion, just because he's been tied to guys like Hoyer, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, what have you, that doesn't mean, I don't feel like that's the end all be all for Kyle Shanahan. And I think he's honestly sick and tired of being connected to that. I really think he is. I think he is and that's why I'm talking about his press conference and the way he answered that question, because I feel like the way he went about it, he was pissed. He's like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't want to be connected to Kirk anymore. I feel like that is a narrative that he doesn't appreciate or wants to get away from. So that's why, again, I don't see Mac Jones as this like, oh, he's the fit, right? He's the perfect fit. He's going to come in. My goodness, I need to turn this alarm off. Stop buzzing me. So it's been pretty wild. It's been a wild couple of days. It's been a lot of fun. The Senior Bowl circuit, or not the Senior Bowl circuit, the Pro Day circuit now becomes something that 49er fans have some stake in. Like when it comes to quarterbacks, like we actually know we're getting a quarterback. So now we can really, really rip apart these pro days and get into them. I'm going to go back and watch Trey Lance's pro day. I obviously saw the highlights and he made fantastic throws. He's someone who should still be in consideration for the 49ers at 3 based on his tools, based on his ability, all those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, the 49ers find themselves in a great position. And I like, too, that the 49ers made the move up to number 3 before the Pro Day circuit, because look at how the narrative has flipped on Justin Fields in literally a half an hour of him throwing. It took a half an hour of him throwing on the field and people actually putting their eyes on Justin Fields for the entire narrative to flip. Now we're talking about Fields potentially going to 2 to the Jets. This is something that I've always been concerned of before we were even at this point. I'm talking about months ago, because if you look at Kyle Shanahan and you look at his coaching tree, you look at LaFleur, who is now the OC with the Jets, you look at Robert Saleh, you look at all the connections that Kyle Shanahan has from the Jets, you look at the connections that then translate to the QB Collective, which is Kyle's school, which LaFleur has coached at and been a part of, which likely means he knows exactly who Justin Fields is, similarly to how I've always connected and others have connected Justin Fields to Shanahan. So now I think the real question is, does Fields go at 3? Because honestly, I truly felt the perception around Fields was what was going to keep him out of New York. New York is a nasty city. New York they'll let you know when you're messing up. They'll let you know when you grab the wrong person. They will come after you. And I think from that perspective, they have to be ultra cognizant of that. At least more so than other places that don't have as large of media markets. So now you looking at Justin Fields and the narrative has flipped quite a bit. So we'll see if that lasts until the draft. We'll see what LaFleur likes. Does LaFleur want Wilson? Does LaFleur want Fields? It's going to be really interesting. But I think the point is the 49ers made the move at the exact right time, before the hype went up, before everyone started getting out of control, before the narratives went insane. I assume they would have to pay more to move up to 3 now, because as it seems like we're talking about, it is now a conversation today that is, are the Jets going to take Fields at 3 now? That is a legitimate conversation. When a month ago people had Kellen Mond over Justin Fields. So it just shows how quickly the narrative changes. So it's just going to be really, really, really interesting to see how this all plays out. Regardless of how it plays out, I'm super excited how this all goes. It's really cool to see some people commenting on YouTube. It's really cool to see some people commenting on Facebook. Like I talked about, this is the first time I have streamed across all platforms. So I thank all of you guys for tuning in. It's first time. It's going to be a couple dry runs that we're going to have. I'm going to have to figure all this out and how everything works. But I do appreciate everyone hopping in, commenting. My IG folks are always lit. I always appreciate my IG folks. They're going wild in the chat right now. I'm not even gonna try to read. I'm going to try to read it. IG's not suitable for work. If you want to come over there and see what they're talking about. But it's a lot of fun. So again, I appreciate everyone hopping on. This is going to become a more regular thing. This is going to be something that we will eventually transition into more structured shows and things like that. We have big plans leading up to the draft. So again, I appreciate you. And look at all my Facebook folks. See, like my Facebook folks just get like the IG leftovers, which I feel bad, and I'm trying to switch that up a little bit, but I do appreciate my Facebook folks chiming in. It's actually good to hear from you guys. So regardless, I'm excited. The 49ers are picking at 3. They're getting a quarterback of the future that will transcend this franchise, whether good or bad, whether they hit or miss. Hopefully for me, I'm this way. That guy. I like this guy. Oh, I'm all backwards. Where am I? Look, Justin, man. Justin. Come on home, Justin. We got to get Justin at 3, man. That would be... I've been dreaming about Justin Fields in a 49ers uniform since about October, November, is when I really kind of indicated that there might be some issues. There might be some issues in 49ers land in regards to the quarterback room. So I started scouting quarterbacks early. So I scouted all the quarterbacks. I feel extremely confident with my rankings. I feel extremely confident with my evaluations. They haven't changed all throughout this process. I think I'm just gonna stick to them at this point. We're just gonna keep rolling. One of my guys on IG just said, watch the NFL Network mock Justin at 9. Not happening. We're going to see 5 quarterbacks go in the first round, or I'm sorry, 5 quarterbacks go in the top 10. We've never seen that before. And it's not going to be one of these situations where you see your Jake Lockers getting elevated, your Gabberts getting elevated, your Christian Ponders getting elevated, your EJ Manuels getting elevated in the first round because the quarterback class is so weak. That's not why that is. There are 5 quarterbacks that are going to go in the top 10 because they are deserving of going in the top 10. I would argue that you could argue that all 5 of them would be the number 1 pick in their respective class if it was only just them. They were the only top 5 quarterback that was in that class. All these guys are legit, but I think, in my opinion, there is a clear ranking system. And for me, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to release these rankings on the website. I'm going to do a write-up. We're going to do the hows, the whys, pros, cons. I'm going to give you in-depth insight into the rankings, but they have not changed, and they are still Lawrence 1, Fields 2, Wilson 3, Trey 4, Mac 5. That's how it stacks for me. And I think we're going to keep it that way. Honestly, I think we're just going to ride that out to the end of the year. Wilson almost had me, though. Wilson almost had me swap him. But, I'm a Fields guy. So we're sticking with it. And we're going to see what happens. But I would like to thank, again, all my folks on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter hopping on. I think I'm going to end this one out. So again, appreciate everyone, and we'll keep this rolling. Keep an eye out. Check in when I hop on. It's going to be lit. Appreciate you guys. We're going to close this out.